The pressure is dropping too fast. Look!
I see it, running diagnostics. What's the source?
It's not mechanical.
The moment he bent down to lift a fallen suitcase, the airport supervisor snapped, "Hey, baggage goes to belt 4. Move." The man froze mid-motion, not because he was scared, but because he'd heard that tone his whole life. A black man in a charcoal coat, calm eyes, clean hands still reduced to help without anyone asking who he was. The supervisor shoved a luggage tag toward him like an order. Phones nearby caught the scene. A little boy stared, confused. And then the man still holding the suitcase smiled softly and said, "I'll do what's right. But you're going to learn something today. If you love stories where respect is earned the hard way, like and subscribe to Echo Story, this one hits." His name was Malcolm Reed, and the quiet confidence he carried wasn't arrogance, it was leadership. CEO of a national airport services technology company, Malcolm had a morning meeting in Chicago with airline partners and city officials. He traveled light, no entourage, no flex. Just a garment bag, a carry-on, and a laptop with contracts that controlled millions in airport operations. He'd stopped near a crowded carousel when an elderly woman's suitcase toppled off the belt. Malcolm stepped in automatically, catching it before it cracked open. The woman thanked him. That's when the supervisor noticed red vest, clipboard, loud mouth, and eyes that scanned Malcolm like he belonged to a different category. "Workers aren't allowed up here without a badge," the man barked. The supervisor's name tag read Rick Dalton. He didn't ask if Malcolm needed help. He didn't say, "Sir." He just pointed toward the service corridor like Malcolm was blocking the real passengers. "You people always try to blend in," Rick muttered, loud enough to be heard. Malcolm's jaw tightened for half a second, then relaxed. He'd learned something powerful in boardrooms. Reacting fast feels good, but responding smart changes outcomes. "I'm not staff," Malcolm said evenly, placing the suitcase back onto the belt. Rick smirked. "Sure, and I'm the mayor." Behind Malcolm, a young baggage handler looked down ashamed. Malcolm noticed because leaders always notice who's forced to stay silent. Rick called over a security officer like he was summoning a dog. "This guy's interfering with operations," he said. "He's pretending to be a passenger." The security officer, tired-eyed and cautious, looked Malcolm up and down. Rick didn't even glance at the documents. "Fake," he snapped, then turned to the crowd like he had an audience. "This is why airports are unsafe." The security officer hesitated, but Rick kept pressing. "Escort him out. I'll call TS myself." Malcolm inhaled slowly, feeling heat rise in his chest, and choosing discipline over explosion. Malcolm could have ended it with one phone call. But he didn't want a quick win, he wanted a clean lesson. He looked at the security officer and said gently, "Can you do me a favor? Scan my boarding pass in your system before we escalate." The officer nodded, grateful for a reasonable option. Rick scoffed. "Stop wasting time," he snapped. The officer stepped aside to radio dispatch. As the seconds passed, Rick leaned closer, voice low and poisonous. "Next time, just do your job and don't touch passenger bags." Malcolm met his gaze. "My job is bigger than you can imagine," he said quietly. Rick laughed in his face. "Yeah? Then imagine yourself outside this terminal." Malcolm's phone buzzed, an incoming call labeled Airline Partner Chief Counsel. He let it ring. A woman nearby business traveler, neat blazer, had been recording since Rick first raised his voice. She wasn't chasing drama. She was capturing truth. "Sir," she whispered to Malcolm, "do you want me to stop?" Malcolm shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "Keep it." People always deny what they did when the lights turn off. Rick noticed the phone and snapped again. Recording is prohibited in secure areas. He shouted, even though they were standing in plain public space beside the carousel. He stepped toward her, hand out like he could grab her device. Malcolm shifted just enough to block him without touching him. Calm, controlled, protective. Don't, Malcolm warned softly. That single word carried a weight Rick couldn't decode. Rick backed up, then turned to the security officer as if to prove power. Arrest him for obstruction. The security officer returned, radio pressed to his shoulder. His boarding pass checks out, he said. He's a passenger. Rick's face twitched. For a split second, he looked cornered, then he doubled down. Then he's impersonating staff. He touched baggage. That's a violation. Malcolm exhaled patient as a judge. So helping an elderly woman is a crime now? Rick's eyes narrowed. Not your concern. The baggage handler who'd been watching finally spoke, voice trembling. He just caught a bag, sir. He didn't go behind the belt. Rick shot him a glare so sharp it could cut. Stay in your lane. Malcolm looked at the young worker, maybe 20, hands rough, eyes tired. What's your name? Malcolm asked. The kid swallowed. Yalan, Malcolm nodded. Thank you for being honest, Yalan. Rick snapped. Stop interviewing my staff. I'm not here to create a scene, he said. But I do want a report filed. Right now, with witnesses. Rick laughed again, loud and confident. The laugh of a man used to never being challenged. File whatever you want. People like you complain and disappear. Malcolm's eyes softened with something painful recognition. That's the problem, he said. You think I disappear. He finally answered his ringing phone. This is Malcolm, he said. The voice on the other end was polished and urgent. Malcolm listened, then replied, I'm at baggage claim. Yes, that baggage claim. He glanced at Rick. Please hold those contracts. We might need them sooner than planned. Rick's smile faded by a millimeter. Within minutes, airport operations arrived. 2 managers in suits, clipboards, brisk steps. One of them, as Hart approached Malcolm first. Sir, we received an incident report, she said. Rick jumped in instantly, pointing like a prosecutor. He's the issue. He's pretending and touching bags and blocking. Ms. Hart raised a hand. Rick, I'm speaking to the passenger. That word passenger hit Rick like cold water. Malcolm didn't gloat. He simply explained, calmly, exactly, like a man used to facts. Rick interrupted twice. Ms. Hart's expression hardened with each interruption. Rick, stop, she said. Rick scoffed. Don't let him charm you. Malcolm looked at Ms. Hart. May I ask a question? She nodded. Do you know who your airport services tech provider is? Ms. Hart blinked. Yes, Reed Aeroworks Systems. Malcolm smiled politely. I'm Reed, he said. Malcolm Reed. Silence dropped like a curtain. Ms. Hart's eyes widened, then darted to his face again like her brain needed a second confirmation. Rick's mouth opened, but no sound came out, like his throat had suddenly forgotten how to lie. That's not possible, Rick whispered. Malcolm's tone stayed gentle. It's possible. It's just uncomfortable for you. Ms. Hart straightened instantly, professionalism snapping into place. Mr. Reed, I apologize, she said. We didn't recognize you. Malcolm nodded. That's not the issue, he replied. The issue is how fast he recognized me as Les. Rick tried to laugh it off. Come on, it's a misunderstanding. Malcolm raised his hand. No, he said quietly. It was a decision, repeated, loud. Ms. Hart pulled Rick aside. voice low but sharp. Rick's face went from pale to angry to pleading in under 5 seconds. Malcolm watched without satisfaction. This wasn't revenge, it was accountability. He asked Ms. Hart to bring Yalin forward again. Yalin approached hesitantly, like honesty had cost him before. "Did you feel safe speaking up?" Malcolm asked. Yalin hesitated, eyes flicking to Rick. "No," he admitted. Malcolm nodded slowly. "That matters." He turned back to Ms. Hart. "My company trains staff efficiency and belt systems," he said. "But today showed me you have a culture problem, not a technology problem." Ms. Hart swallowed. "We'll handle this internally," she promised. Malcolm's eyes didn't move. "Not this time," he said. "I want a formal investigation, written statements, video preserved. And I want your union rep present for Yalin so he's protected." Rick's voice rose again, desperate now. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to destroy me because I did my job." Malcolm stepped closer, not threatening, just present. "Your job is operations," Malcolm said, "not humiliation." Rick's eyes flashed with fear and fury. "You people always pull the race card," Rick snapped, forgetting who was listening. The air went icy. Ms. Hart's face tightened. A nearby traveler gasped softly. Jalen's shoulders dropped like he'd been expecting that sentence all day. Malcolm didn't react like a wounded man. He reacted like a CEO signing consequences. "Thank you," Malcolm said calmly. "That statement just saved everyone a lot of time." He looked at Ms. Hart. "That's on record now, and I'm not the only one who heard it. So tell me again this was a misunderstanding." Ms. Hart's voice went quiet. "Rick, give me your badge." Rick clutched his badge like it was oxygen. "No," he whispered. "You can't do that. I have rights." Ms. Hart nodded. "You do," she said, "and we're following procedure." She turned to Malcolm. "Mr. Reed, can we move this to an office?" Malcolm glanced at the crowd, the phones, the watching faces. "Yes," he said, "but I want one thing clear. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for equal treatment, the kind I should have had before you knew my name." As they walked, Rick's voice cracked behind them. "This is unfair." Malcolm turned once. "Unfair," he repeated. "That's exactly what it felt like when you decided I was baggage help without asking." Rick's eyes darted around, searching for all eyes. None appeared. In a glass-walled office overlooking the terminal, Malcolm sat across from airport leadership, legal counsel, and HR. The video from the traveler's phone played on the screen, Rick's finger pointing. The orders, the insults, the "you people" line. Every second of it stripped excuses down to bone. The airport attorney cleared his throat. "Mr. Reed, what resolution are you seeking?" Malcolm folded his hands. "First," he said, "protection for Yalin and any employee pressured into silence. Yalin wasn't in the room, but his future was. Second, immediate suspension pending investigation for Rick." The room shifted. "Third," Malcolm continued, "mandatory bias and de-escalation training for supervisors, not a slideshow. Real training with accountability." He paused. "And fourth, I want our contract reevaluated. Because I don't partner with facilities that treat human beings like threats." The attorney stiffened. "That contract is substantial." Malcolm nodded. "So is dignity." Rick was brought in with a union representative, face sweaty, posture defensive. "I didn't know who he was," Rick blurted, as if that was the whole defense. Malcolm stared at him, voice low. "That's the confession," he said. "You didn't know who I was, so you treated me like I didn't matter." Rick's union rep tried to steer him. "Let's focus on procedure." Malcolm nodded. Procedure is simple, he replied. Passengers are not to be confronted without cause. Phones are not to be grabbed. Crew and security are not to be weaponized for ego. Rick's eyes narrowed. So what? You're gonna get me fired? Malcolm's expression didn't change. You fired yourself the moment you decided your assumptions were facts, he said. I'm just refusing to hide it. Rick finally looked down. Airport leadership tried to negotiate quietly, offer Malcolm lounge access, upgrades, a private apology. Malcolm declined every perk like they were insults wrapped in ribbon. Don't soothe me, he said. Fix it. Ms. Hart returned with an update. Rick was officially suspended, pending a termination review based on harassment, discrimination, and misconduct. Malcolm didn't celebrate. He asked, "And Yalin?" Ms. Hart nodded. We reassigned him to a different supervisor and added whistleblower protection. Malcolm exhaled, relieved. Good. Then he pulled up his laptop and opened a file. Vendor performance clauses, compliance requirements, and partnership standards. I'm not here to burn an airport down, he said. I'm here to make sure it stops burning people. He looked around the room. If you want to keep our systems, you will meet our standards. Not because I'm CEO, because it's right. By evening, the video hit social media anyway, cropped at first, edited for outrage, but then the full clip surfaced with context. People didn't just see a CEO reveal. They saw a man choose patience, process, and protection for a young worker who couldn't afford mistakes. Reporters called. The airport issued a public statement. We are investigating. Malcolm's company issued one too short, firm, human. We believe in safety, respect, and accountability. At a hotel that night, Malcolm sat alone staring at the city lights, finally allowing the emotion to arrive. Not rage weariness. He opened his phone and listened to a voice memo from his mother he kept saved. Don't let them make you small, baby. His eyes stung. He whispered, I'm trying, Mom. Then he typed a single message to his team. Tomorrow we hold the line. The next day, Malcolm arrived at the airport conference center for the partner meeting, only this time. Everyone recognized him. Executives stood too quickly, smiled too wide. Malcolm didn't punish politeness. He redirected it. Before we discuss technology, he began. We discuss culture. The room quieted. He played the clip himself uncut, then turned it off. If your supervisors can't treat people with basic respect, my software won't save you, he said. A senior airline rep cleared his throat. What are you proposing? Malcolm looked around. A joint accountability program, he replied. Clear reporting channels. Immediate consequences for discrimination. Protected pathways for staff to speak, he paused. And a requirement. Any supervisor with repeated complaints is removed no matter their tenure. Some faces tightened. Malcolm continued anyway. If that makes you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort is where growth begins. The room stayed silent because they knew he was right. A week later, the investigation concluded. Rick was terminated officially for misconduct, harassment, and violation of passenger policy. But it didn't stop there. 2 managers who ignored earlier complaints about Rick were demoted. A security contractor who'd repeatedly escalated on the wrong people was replaced. Careers didn't crumble because Malcolm wanted blood. They crumbled because evidence exposed rot that had been protected for years. Yalin received a new role with training and a raise, and for the first time he told his mother, I think I'm safe at work. Malcolm visited the baggage area privately and spoke to the staff. You don't need a CEO to rescue you, he said. You need a system that respects you. A woman in uniform wiped her eyes. "Thank you for not leaving," she whispered. Months later, the airport's culture started to shift, not perfectly, not magically, but visibly. Complaint reports were taken seriously. Supervisors were trained and monitored. Staff felt less afraid to speak. Malcolm never forgot the moment Rick mistook him for a handler, because the pain wasn't the mistake. It was the certainty behind it. On a flight home, Malcolm watched luggage roll down the belt through the terminal window and thought about all the invisible people keeping the world moving. He opened his notes app and typed, "Respect is the real security." Then he smiled, remembering how many viewers discovered the story through Echo Story and how many people wrote messages saying, "I saw myself in this." Malcolm didn't destroy careers with anger. He destroyed them with truth, because truth doesn't scream. It just stands there and dares you to deny it.